going on? I just want to say people came out the woodwork this morning when I was shirtless in all of my glory. People came out the fucking woodwork and was like, put on a fucking shirt. That was pretty funny. Fuck y'all. So anyway, um, so yeah, I wanted to talk. I watched G-Man's last video, and I thought it was a nice opportunity to address something he brought up in the debate that I didn't actually address actively in the debate because I thought it was absolutely fucking stupid. That's just the truth. I was like, there was just certain things I wasn't going to go after, and I was like, I'm not following that rabbit, not at all. So it's an opportunity to address it and to kind of segue into a better topic. What you see me looking at here is my post lab for my chemistry course, and I may have to ask Ronnie's help for this because it involves an anhydrous salt and getting the measurement of the actual water used to make the aqueous solution that we used in the experiment, because it was already mixed, and so I have no idea how much of how many grams was actually used to make the solution. I know its molarity and that's it. So we have to derive that. So anyway, I figured I'd come out and talk because it's a nice day. I got my Mozzie over there that you saw me blow out earlier. But so if you have not watched that video, you can actually stop this and come back to it. It's only 4 minutes long. It's G-Man mentioning the Descent from Darwin petition or whatever the fuck that thing is, and you rarely hear me actually address that because it's such a silly point that it kind of shows you the depths that people will go to push back against something that really doesn't impact their life. Like if you act like biological evolution, cool, awesome, whatever. How, like, my belief or disbelief in this scientific fact has literally no bearing on my life. Like, I will continue to be as prosperous or not as prosperous as I'm going to be, whether or not, like, it's like the flat earth. Like, it really doesn't affect your day-to-day life. So I wanted to just kind of put that out there on the forefront because I thought it's always an interesting hill that people choose to die on with this whole discussion about whether, you know, evolution or abiogenesis is true or not, because I think if people have a conclusion that they need to go to, and that is their deity made them in their image and they're special and all this fancy shit, and it's tied to their identity, and whether people want to acknowledge that or not, if you talk to people, individuals who are proponents of like intelligent design and people who espouse a particular version of I was created special, that notion itself is not just some mantra that they picked up. That's something that people believe, and they genuinely believe it. It took me a while to realize that. There was a video on YouTube. It's still on YouTube. It's an old one. It's a classic, and I can't remember the name of it. It's somebody who does cartoons, but it's not dark matter, I don't believe. It's another person who says that, you know, basically, long story short, when you criticize certain people's religious beliefs, you are indirectly criticizing them, because what they profess that, you know, they're getting an intuition from beyond, you know, is actually their subconscious, you know, throwing shit at them. And so when you disagree with them or you dissent from their position, they tune in on that and they take offense and they take it personally because, well, you are in a way, you know, calling them a liar indirectly. Not really, but that's the way it's received. It may be a non-stamp collector video. I've not seen it in a while, but some of you know what I'm referring to. But this is a lot like that. If you take that notion that I'm created special, and then you tell people, well, no, you're a product of the natural world. There are many mechanisms that operate so that the environment that we're in now has some sort of balance. There is some sort of give and take here. And then there's dramatic shifts that cause, you know, catastrophic changes that will then reshape our living environment. Well, that's a lot to take in. You're just another cog in this gigantic machine that is a biome, that is an ecosystem, that is whatever, right? You're not special. You've taken away, effectively just removed that special aspect to being tailor-made around some type of design. Like you were just a result of, sperm hitting an egg. Hell, that can happen in any sexually reproducing fucking organism. That's not special. That's not tailor-made. That's just it just is. So I think that's something that a lot of us need to take into consideration when we're having these conversations, because people who believe this sort of thing have this, and it is an integral part of who they are. And I believe that's why you'll hear many of them go, well, how can someone just think that they came from monkeys? And that it's almost like this really disparaging comment that they tend to make, because for them, how could you come from an animal? That's just, we train animals, we capture them, we put them in cages. Why would you ever want to be associated with one? Well, I am connected with the rest of the living world. Why would I ever want to imagine that I am somewhat different than, or so different that I don't have any connection to the things around me? Because that I would be a stranger in a strange land. I find solace in the fact that there is a relationship between me and the animals that I eat. I find that incredibly interesting. To some level, a fly is related to a spider. They're not directly related, of course, but there's some relation. And of course, they're animals who, conduct cannibalism. There are sharks that will eat their siblings in utero, I believe. So there's a connection with everything that goes far beyond predator and prey dynamics. But I just wanted to use that as a silly example just to kind of get people's minds going. But anyway, what I really wanted to talk about is when we discuss people who are proponents of some of these ideas, but more so resistant and skeptic, I'm going to use that term loosely, to concepts, scientific facts like biological evolution, it's not that they have evidence to the contrary, it's just that they personally choose not to believe because it's well founded. If you go to, hell, I don't know, JSTOR, PubMed, NIH, NCBI, I think some of those are actually the same organization now that I think about it. But if you actually go to these places, they're well documented. There's literally, I actually did a search. There's over 1 million papers on evolution, biological evolution. There's over 1 million. It shows you the results at the top of the page. How many results are there for intelligent design? How many results are there for special creation? Well, the deck is stacked against Christians because they hate Christians and it's the Illuminati owns them and yada 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 yada. Okay, so people like Hugh Ross and Fosrana, they would have never been able to get degrees and add to the fields if this bias actually existed. Like if this was a real thing. There are plenty of people who work for, Creation Institute, Institute for Creation Science, and was this Discovery Institute and AIG and all these other organizations. They have people on their payroll with legit PhDs. Mind you, some of them are cranks, but there's a good number of them who have that. So, oh, and there's a snake. Yeah, there's a snake. You don't believe me? Check this shit out. There's a snake over there. Yeah. Well, that was interesting. So, keep an eye on him. He's just trying to get out the sun. It's hot. So, there are people who will put in the work because they are genuinely skeptical, and they have their conclusion, and they want to find a way to get to that conclusion. So they took what I feel is the best route. They educated themselves on the topic formally, and they said, you know what, I'm going to immerse myself in this field and actively challenge it. Do I disagree with them? Of course. Do I respect them for going the distance and really challenging themselves? Fuck yeah. but not everyone has the time and the patience and the will to go and get a PhD because it's time consuming, it's very expensive. So then, okay, so what do we do? If I have a legitimate issue with biological evolution, I shouldn't have to become, you know, these snakes going right back across. Okay, I shouldn't have to obtain a PhD just to say I don't believe in this stuff. You know, that's asking a little much. All right, cool. Then I have to figure out something. Why is it that the vast majority of people from all types of backgrounds, from all around the world, 99.9% of them came to the same conclusion? Well, they're ball washing one another. They're just slapping each other on the back because they all agree, yada yada yada, for whatever reason. Let me use a veculatism. It's arbitrary. Didn't know what that means. Okay, so why do we? Let's get broad here. Why do we trust people with PhD? Why is that even a thing? Why? Because this guy sat in a classroom for 10 years, whatever, and he regurgitated stuff. Well, most of that time, yeah, you sat in the classroom and you regurgitated some of the information. You demonstrated in a variety of ways that you can understand not only the concepts but the mathematics behind it in order to demonstrate what it is that is supposedly, you know, so well founded. If let's say for instance, even in courses that I'm taking, if I wanted to determine a particular constant for ferrous nitrate, iron 3 nitrate, excuse me, well, I could experimentally determine that and then be within a particular range. I can actually do that. In fact, I actually did do that this last week. So you can actually challenge stuff even in your undergrad. But let's say you don't want to do that. I don't even go to, I don't like people. I don't want to go to school. Okay, cool. Let's pick, hell, any well-founded theory. How about germ theory? You know, I don't see too many people questioning that when I see people. A lot of people wash their hands and wash their ass. They don't tend to question that one, oddly. It's such a wonder why. But how many people who question the paradigms that we've kind of set up within science and science trust and, you know, science communicators and educators, how many of those people have actually been skeptical about all scientific theories and supposed scientific facts? How many people have actually seen their own skin flora? I have. I've cultured it. Well, Drag, you just going to school. You're talking about your school stuff again. No, I actually have videos where I bought culturing little dishes already with the agar and everything, and I use sterile, you know, cotton tip swabs, and I cultured my own skin flora from. I took another sample from my Xbox controller. I took all kinds of samples, and I put it next to my laptop fan. You know, the fan that disperses all the heat on my gaming laptop, and that's the heat that allowed the colonies to grow. I didn't need a lab for that. I just bought everything off of fucking Amazon and did that. So, you can also buy a microscope that connects to your computer, so you can then transfer the colonies to a slide and then view it. You don't need to be in school to do any of this stuff. But I don't see that level of skepticism when it comes to other things. I really don't see it. So, it just baffles me. But anyway, I just want to make that quick aside because I always found that interesting. So, why should any of us trust a scientist, period? Just any guy who he's been granted a PhD because he supposedly added to the field and supposedly had peer review work that expanded our knowledge in some way, shape, or form, and had to pass through scrutiny and years of graduate school, whatever. Anybody can do that. Okay. We live in a society that is founded upon trust, believe it or not. How many people actually understand how the internet works? The very thing that gives them the ability to communicate some of these terrible ideas. How many of them can actually tell you how the internet works? I probably know a handful of people that can explain to you how the internet actually works. Like how the data gets transmitted, how you all are able to see me, and how I'm able to see other people wirelessly. There's nothing, I'm on my phone. How many people can actually explain that? So the vast majority of people don't actually know how this stuff works. So there's a level of trust that they've given, for one thing, to a retailer to sell them the product. So you had to trust someone, an organization, a store, mind you, to sell you a product that performs some type of action or some type of whatever, service, whatever. You more than likely had to trust somebody with the money and that they gave you the product for the correct price that was quoted, especially if you bought online. So then you had to also trust a manufacturer to actually produce the item that says it, does what it actually does. You had to trust the engineers who designed the product for the manufacturers to make. You had to trust the mathematicians who helped write the programs, or excuse me, actually the computer scientists who wrote the programs for those engineers to actually build the damn thing in the first place. So then you actually have to trust their education and the institutions that supported their education and their abilities to do that. Not only that, and firms as well, of the manufacturers and the software engineers, respectively. So already I have 7 avenues here, or 7 categories, I should say, of trust that is kind of needed. It's implicit, but this still illustrates the point that I'm making. We do trust people who have expertise in these areas because our first world civilization depends on that. If I go and take my car to get my tires balanced, I have no idea how to operate that fucking machine. I see people put it on the balance and they type shit into a computer, and that however it does its thing, it does its thing. I have no fucking idea. I just pay for it. No clue. I could probably learn. I probably can't buy that machine because it looks fucking expensive, and I'm not going to learn it just to balance my fucking tires once every, I don't know how many miles. I really don't know. Not a car guy. There's, again, a level of trust. Every facet of our lives depends on that trust. But here, in this really strange area, when it comes to the science that backs the technology that helps build our society, people then pick and choose kind of what they want to rely on, and I find that interesting. It's really interesting. Drag, you were getting that the difference. The difference has been applied in theoretical science. Viva, can you rephrase that for me? I may be slow. I may be getting high off this fucking fume over here. I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Shit. Getting the likes of G-Man, Dissenters, right? The same kind. Yeah, yeah, I understand there is a certain level of dishonesty because time and time again we've explained our positions and the positions of others, and then they've somehow gotten misconstrued between them being in written form or in text form and then being right there to elaborate on, and still somehow people just twist it into, I don't know. I'm trying to stay away from the word dishonest because it gets tossed around too often and just really, really frivolously. So I'm personally trying to stay away from that, even though it's plain fucking obvious. So, so yeah. System. I'm not a car guy either, but there seems to be a leak in my coolant system. Yeah. there's certain facts about the world you can ascertain without the help from a scientist. Obviously, that's obvious. I don't know how to reset my bones if I get something dislocated. I could probably look it up and Google it, but I think I might need a different set of hands to kind of do that. So I have to trust a physician that has been going to school for X number of years, that has had to learn all this stuff. So, you know, I work with guys with computer engineering degrees and electrical engineering, and some are creationists. There's a difference between applied science and theoretical. Oh yeah, okay, yes, I completely agree. I completely agree. Yes, you can. I do, and I definitely acknowledge people who they have this cognitive dissonance going on, where they're in fields that kind of that would inform them about certain aspects of our natural world, and it would betray their personal beliefs about the world in general. I've worked with quite a few people like that, and I worked with a guy. Excuse me, no. I was in a microbiology class with a guy who was training to be a registered nurse. He was in a nursing program, and he's an anti-vaxxer. Explain that shit to me. Just he believes Andrew Wakefield 100%. And I still have the conversation, and it's amazing. It is simply amazing, the kind of stuff this guy was espousing. Just shocking. So it happens. It's really crazy. Just watched T's last video he posted 5 minutes ago. It's beyond comical. Ronnie is once again downplaying the benefits of education. I'm not surprised. He is claiming that he has an education again, but didn't remotely say what it was. You know what? He's going to play that game. Like he's going to play that game over and over again. I'm not surprised in the least, Steve, because he knows credibility is tied to one's education to a degree. No pun intended. But he can't keep up the facade unless he fabricates that part about his life. And that I thoroughly believe that. Like, that is something that, and I've said this before, you don't need a formal education to be educated on a topic. Not at all. But I do believe there are certain things where you have to experience it in order to truly understand it. I definitely stick by that. That is just kind of one of those things where you can read about military history your entire life. You can read about the stories, first-hand stories from soldiers. Until you put on a uniform and strap on some boots, you honestly don't understand. Point fucking blank. Like, you can think, you can read as many teaching manuals as you want to. You can read all types of stories from people who have been educators for multiple decades. Until you're in front of a class and you're trying to educate them, you really don't understand the dynamics involved with that. So then that's another example. Drag, make the anti-vaxxer watch my feeling this conversation. I lost contact with him. I don't really talk to anybody from Maryland anymore. Whoops. Drag, now remember how you said you would give Ronnie your exam with the answers whited out or your slides copy? Yeah. No. He has scoffed at those challenges midnight, and he's kind of poo-pooed them away. So, I've offered him also he can make his own chemistry series. I have a video where I'm going over just some basic word problems in chem. I'll probably do another one doing an ice table for chemical equilibrium, but I'm thinking about doing some molality and molarity ones first. So and he's welcome to make his own series, which he actually started, but that they were lacking. Let's say he got some harsh criticism. They weren't as bad as the website, but he got some feedback that he didn't like. So that's why you probably don't see that one anymore. So, I agree with that until one serves. Yeah, that's it. That's just. Oh, how did the exam go? I got a 77% on the multiple choice. I'm going to get butt fucked on the short answer because me and 80% of the rest of the class really didn't have enough time to finish the short answer. So, long story short, everyone's going to feel that pain. But I actually passed the multiple choice portion of my exam with a B-, I think, according to his scoring thing. So, I learned something from CCP. I learned that they're all fucktards. Yeah, some of them can be cordial. Some of them can, um, some of them can actually have a conversation. And I want to give credit where credit's due. When G-Man calms down, when he controls himself, when he composes himself, he can have a conversation. Spoken is one of these guys where he can have a conversation if he wants to. He has to. He has to really desire that, and it's not too hard for him. But he is oftentimes is more inclined to be a troll than anything, or try and be a troll. He's not a really good troll, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Jordan, I'd be glad you're in the bio program and not chemistry program. We didn't have multiple choice for our Chem 1-2 exam. Ooh, damn. I see. I wouldn't mind too much because they still get partial credit for the short answer, but it was, we got about an hour and a half, and it was like 26 multiple choice, and then about 3 pages back and forth of short answer. So it honestly just ran out of time. So you know, I don't know if I still have the material midnight. I have to look for it. I usually, after about a year and a half and it's still sitting around, I throw it away. If you want a real challenge, go look up genetics word problems. I still have some on my Google Drive if you want to try. They're not fun. I'm gonna tell you right now. If you really want a challenge, go do some genetics word problems. Not fun in the least. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want to. They suck. They suck ass. And I might have to end up taking molecular genetics anyway, so because I don't think my genetics course would transfer. So that's some good news. Anyway, but yeah. So if you are I skipped. How you doing? Hey, there's a snake running around over here somewhere. I saw him pass over here. I'm just letting you know. I don't know if your dog will run into him.
They usually don't.
Okay.
They smell them when they go the other way.
There you go. Smart dog.
Smart dog. I appreciate the warning.
Not a problem at all. Let's see. Thanks. I am out. I'll see you later, Steve. But yeah, these. I don't know. It's interesting. If you are a skeptic, like you really don't like biological evolution, whether it just and some people have right now. Also bear in mind that it's on the 80, 90, 60% ABCD scale. C considering average, not low. Ooh, wow. Shit. Hey, more of a challenge makes you more of a man. But yeah, if okay, let me put myself in a position of biological evolution skeptic. All right. Here's what I would do. Me personally, I would go and I would learn everything I can about the topic. And see, here's what I don't see. Here's what I don't see. I don't see CCP members genuinely looking into the literature to find out what says what. I've seen some of, let's say, I'm just gonna pick on G-Man because I just so happen to catch some of his search terms. When I'm gonna give you a comparison. Again, I'm just using G-Man as an example because he's one of the only people who you can actually see what he's searching when he types stuff in because he screen shares a lot. When G-Man searches evolution and he's trying to learn about it, he'll type in something to the effect of man evolved from ape, evolution, refutation. So that's kind of one of the series of search words that I've seen him use. Not exactly. Again, I am paraphrasing what I've seen in his search terms within the last month. Something to that effect. I would never search a topic like that because it's one thing, it's loaded to presume a particular conclusion. So if he's learning about the topic just on its face, he's not going to get the best search results. If he's looking for the controversy specifically, then sure. But if you're genuinely trying to learn about a topic, like let's say if I want to debate the use of the Septuagint and some type of biblical text or something like that. I'm just using this as an example. This is not something I'd actually do. I wouldn't search Septuagint Calvinist killer argument refutation. Like I wouldn't put some shit like that in there. That's ridiculous. I would search what it is, look up its history, look up its uses, and then look at interpretations that people have given, a variety of interpretations. I would spend the next week going over that before I go, here's how I think I want to use this. Because during that week-long research phase, I may find out that I don't know as much as I think I know about this topic. And I'm going to relate this to the debate, because if G-Man had actually done that, he would have seen, for one thing, that that site he used was fictitious. It was a satirical website, right? He would have thrown it out if he would have actually looked at that site and said, you know what other things they have on this website? Oh, there's a woman who killed her lover with a group of trained squirrels. That seems legit. You know, there's all types of wacky stuff on that website. So that's not a good source. So then it begs the question again, what's a good source? Am I going to use these snotty, prim and proper science websites, these repositories of science documents from people who obviously support evolution? Or do I use people who are already in my camp? Well, since I'm going against the grain, I would actually use the affirmative, that this is indeed a fact. Why? Because if I'm attacking that notion, I might want to make sure that I know what that notion is first. Not that I agree with it. It has nothing to do with it. But how can I try and build an argument against something I don't really understand? So that's a clear difference between how I approach things and I think how G-Man or Ronnie or some of these other guys approach things. They stack the deck against themselves and then wonder why conversations really don't go anywhere. If Ronnie wants to argue about abiogenesis, he might not want to go to AIG. He might want to say, okay, let me not use an AIG source because they don't actually have updated information. Me and Sam did a hangout a few weeks ago where he had found some recent research on a topic, how particular molecules early on would have formed and had a particular conformation, and the ones that didn't have this particular conformation, they got kind of, I guess you could say, recycled in a way. And we went over that to the best we could. So, and mind you, that's recent. That's maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I want to find the latest information about whatever this topic is, and then see if what I think about it matches this very recent information. That's first and foremost, because I can't sit here and assume X, Y, and Z about A, B, and C when A, B, and C have changed. I can't go for it because that would be dishonest for me to do. Intellectually dishonest, if you will. So what would help would be if I write down certain things. If I check the source and I say, you know what, this guy actually has work in the field, I believe him to be a source, but he's not my one and only ace in the hole. So that would definitely help the situation. Dragging, I've noticed the CCP like to cite themselves as proof for their bullshit claims. No one, let's see, you know who else does that? Alex Jones, InfoWars. Well, you know what? I'm not too surprised. Sandy did a goodbye video. Oh man. Well, that Tyler, you bring up a good point. Let me tell you what one of the issues with that point is, man. Tommy Hall thinks Alex Jones and InfoWars is a good source of information. Just want to throw that out there. He actually thinks that website, that guy, who in court recently had his lawyer tell the court that he plays a character, Tommy thinks that's legit. I know this is a shock to literally no one, but that's kind of how he rolls. Yeah. So let me go here. Here. There is a podcast that I will be on tonight, and we're about to test the Skype call right now. So, well, not right now, but in a few. So, I had to come back inside, but time is done. Fuck, we can't find us. We have to close. Oh God. Yeah. So Tommy thinks the InfoWars is a good website. So, I'm in complete accord with you on that being a terrible website. Wipe my nose. It's on my nose. It's a booger. Yeah. Thank you. So I want to see this video that True Empiricism supposedly made just now. Education and success, 21 minutes ago. Okay, here we go, folks. Let's see.
Alright guys, I don't want to make this video really long, but I think this is something that's worth mentioning because there's been a lot of personal attacks here on YouTube.
I wonder who started that.
Regarding education, and that usually segues into the personal attacks like people's success in life and so on. Now, I have an education.
He has an education. Actually, can y'all hear this?
Idea with what
can y'all hear what he's saying? I just want to see real quick. Basically, education doesn't make you successful. More people he knows don't have one. Well, he knows some shitty people. I mean, most people I know have education. And they're very, very successful, very successful. So, if you want, it's not even. I'm not sure how that's a measure of. Let me start over. In our first world society, in America, in almost every single state, if you were to do a distribution of people who have degrees and look at the amount of money that they make compared to those you don't, you'll notice a particular trend. So this is, it's not an opinion. This is not, someone looking down their nose at other folks. This is a demonstrable fucking fact that those people who have formal education by far, and I mean leaps and bounds by 6 fucking figures, difference, make more money than those who don't. So if we're measuring just by income, sure. If we're talking about quality of life, then that's a little bit more of an amorphous topic that we can discuss. And I could definitely make the argument that just because you do make a certain amount of money and have a certain education doesn't mean that your life is happy or successful, yada, 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 yada. So I am very curious what type of argument he's trying to make.
You're about to hear me say, but let me start here. I grew up having it very difficult.
Okay.
I grew up in straight poverty, and not the type of poverty that you guys used to hearing, or mom worked 2 jobs and blah blah blah. I mean, I grew up living in abandoned houses. I grew up, and it was hard. It was very difficult growing up. I slept in cars and so on and so forth. And I don't want to get into all the details of that because it was very difficult. But people are going to get the wrong idea as if it's a sob story.
It is a sob
story. It's actually something that, as I look back on, I'm proud of because it helped me to acquire a strength that a lot of people don't have. And I guess that's the point to what I'm trying to get at here. Growing up, I had it difficult. I learned early on in life that if you want something, you have to go get it. You've got to put the effort into something if you want it.
I completely agree.
No one is going to hand you it.
Rags to Popeyes. I'm using that.
It's not going to happen. A lot of people who want to talk about education, and after they've acquired that knowledge that they were able to retain, they seem to think that everything is going to be handed to them.
Whoa. Everything is, after they acquire their education, everything is going to be handed to them. Did y'all hear that? That's what I fucking heard. I could have sworn I fucking heard that too. After you acquire an education, everything is going to be handed to you. I'm going to replay that. That's funny. I think this is another one that I'm going to download, as a matter of fact, because this shit's funny. Wow. Wow, okay. Hold on, folks. Hold on. I'm starting to download now. Yeah, I'm saving this one. This one needs to go in the archive. Wink, wink. Wow. Okay, let me play that again, just to make sure I'm not mishearing him. Hold on. I cut out, so I'm going to replay it.
They've acquired that knowledge that they were able to retain. No one is going to hand you it. And if you don't go get it, it's not going to happen.
I agree with that part.
A lot of people who want to talk about education, and after they've acquired that knowledge that they were able to retain, they seem to think that everything is going to be handed to them.
What? Are you fucking serious? Who has said this? Who has said that after I get this education, I'm on easy street? Like, who doesn't have to actively job search? Who doesn't, some of us may have to, I don't know, do volunteer work. Some of us may have to actually sell ourselves to get these good positions, and then maybe get an opportunity. Like, wow. This is illuminating, folks. This is very illuminating, because this is how he views people who have formal educations. I think it does stand. We probably have to have another conversation about, like, True's epistemology, like how he views things is very interesting to me and quite a few other people, because it's like I would have not imagined that he would have said something like he says he garbles stuff all the time. He's inarticulate. Yeah. I would have not thought that he would have said this. Like, the first thing that he said, I agree with. That's a non-controversial statement. But this, like what he said directly after, wow. So I know for my education, I had to do stuff that was a lot harder than anything that he's ever been through. I'm sorry, I've been homeless too. I've lost everything that I've ever had, sir. You can't play that game with another minority who's had a shit life. And I came from lower middle class. I remember being on fucking food stamps. I remember the look that people like Tommy Hall gave me when I walked into a store with currency that I had no idea what it actually was. I was just given a task and told to go get item. I'll never forget that look ever in my life. Will never forget that look. And I promised my son would never have to go through anything like that. I remember that distinctly. That's one of the things that drives me. I still remember trying to date my wife. Being a broke, formerly college student who had to work full time now and have tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt because I had to take out loans because, I had to move out the fucking state because a hurricane destroyed my fucking house. I didn't have much of a choice. Luckily, I had an aunt who took me in so I could finish high school, only to move back after the fact and then have my home state go, oh, you should have moved back sooner. Since your family relocated to a different state, you're an out-of-state student. So guess what? You're paying that out-of-state fee. And that's why I'm stuck with a shit ton of student loan debt right now. So I'm sorry, this is coming across as a fucking sob story. I made choices in my life to move toward the goals that I want to reach. There is no easy street for me. Life has not been an easy street for me at any point in fucking time. So I don't know who's espousing these views as if the shit that I'm doing now is fucking easy. No, it's not. It's not. I had to sit out while I was in the military, sit out in the fucking desert and practice this shit. I had to get good at shit that I gave up on in high school. But thank you, Midnight. This shit does not define who I am. The shit that I've been through doesn't define who I am. I define who I am. And so I find this odd that he wraps himself in victimhood but then has brass balls the next second. Like, pick a fucking struggle. Like, this bothers the ever living shit out of me because it doesn't make sense. But let me play some more of this.
But after you find that they were, they find out the hard way that yes, they were able to retain some knowledge, but they don't really have any talent with that information that they've acquired.
Talent? What?
So they might have that education and it looks good on paper, but after they might find a job, they have a difficulty keeping that job because their employers aren't impressed, and they might find somebody better. Their employers might find somebody better who has either just as good as an education or no education whatsoever. And I know that because, like I said, I have had a very difficult background growing up. And I've worked some jobs, actually a lot of jobs that I've worked. I've always gotten a promotion, I've always gotten a raise, but I've actually replaced people in some of my jobs that I've worked who had an education in those jobs.
This is interesting.
Where I didn't have one. So, for my own...
So it sounds like he's had a lot of jobs. It sounds like he says he's replaced a lot of people who had education. So when I hear this, because I've actually seen this happen in businesses, because I've worked for big box companies for a number of years, when someone with an education can be replaced by somebody without an education, it's not a very technical job generally. And the person that he replaced has probably found employment in their chosen field that is much better than what he was currently doing. Because if you can be placed by someone who's untrained and uneducated in the area, then that tells you a lot about the standard of employment for that particular area. So let me just throw that out there, okay? I have seen this a number of times, and that's where the joke comes from. Your job could be done by a trained monkey. So there's a reason why I'll just use myself as an example. Ronnie can't walk into the field that I'm going into off the street untrained. There is no, your employer sees you and they just go, whatever, you have no talent, whatever the fuck I'm not even sure what that's a reference to. So we're going to replace you by some trained fucking monkey. My particular field involves tissue culturing, and that's actually the university I'm going to up the street has a lab and a course specifically designed around that. So what I'll be doing, or a lot of what I'll be doing, deals with tissue culturing. What's also great is that when you work with these individuals, this particular individual actually that teaches this course, he has connections to the employer that I seek in the future because they have a cooperative effort with the University of Texas and I believe Baylor University, so that these three entities all work within the same unit towards similar goals. So once you work and train under these individuals, you gain access to these then employers or universities. Should you go into education or go into the field, so to speak. So this actually does not happen the way that he's depicting it, because when you are a mathematician, you don't get replaced by a non-mathematician. If someone said architect, when you're an architect and you get a job working for, let's say, the city, you don't get replaced by a non-architect. Like, that's just because it's really odd. And it would be nice if he had some specifics on here, because anytime I've seen this thing of someone non-educated, non-trained replacing someone with an education, it's because that person with an education actually found a better opportunity. But I don't know, let's listen to some more.
Personal experience, I know that that's true. But to think that education and success is somehow synonymous with one another, or they both go hand in hand, I think
they're not.
It's very silly. I think that a lot of people who think that education is going to help them in life, it doesn't do anything for them.
Whoa, no. See, he'll say something that I kind of agree with, and then he'll say something stupid like that. An education can only help you in life. I'm sorry, I don't know. And someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. When does an education hinder you? Please help me understand how that's some type of hindrance, or how this education does not edify you in some way, shape, or form, if only making you privy to facts of the world, didn't have to actually have a direct translatable skill applied to it. If I just learn about some tribe in Papua New Guinea and their rituals, well, you know what? I know about a tribe in fucking New Guinea and their rituals. Like, there's nothing I can really do with that. So it's such a strange thing to say. An education in being religious. I don't know. I don't know. Midnight. I think Kenny Rhodes would disagree with you.
Guy that I actually know. I mean, well, I don't know him personally, but he's a friend of
someone he knows of.
A church member that I was going to church with, and the guy doesn't know how to read. He doesn't know how to
I know a guy like that too.
Anything. Like, he
fixes cars.
Didn't even go to school because I guess they kept him out of school when he was younger, and he had to work on a farm or something like that. I don't remember the details of it, but he doesn't even know how to read. He doesn't even know really how to math or anything like that. But the guy's a millionaire. He owns his own, like, 2 airplanes. He's got property all over the place. He's very wealthy.
Okay, so, and I think that's a great thing. I think having opportunities for people who were disenfranchised early on is a great thing. If you can survive, and if you can somehow operate within whatever this landscape is that you're in and be profitable, then great, by all means. Children should not be kept out of honestly, somebody could make $10 million a day. If you can't read, people are gonna look at you funny. Ask Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is a millionaire. He made tons, and he still makes tons and tons of money just showing up places. You know how many people fuck with him because his reading capabilities aren't really up there? A lot. You lose a lot of respect if someone hands you a check and you can't even read it. Like, you can pay the bill, but if you can't count and that's what I'm curious about. You can acquire millions, but he can't read or do math. That's a little curious, but whatever. That it makes it very interesting how their life because that's a hindrance. It's a huge hindrance if you don't have these very basic skills. And now it kind of makes me see why he doesn't value speaking clearly, learning English, because he sees this guy who's a millionaire and he's like, well, fuck, I don't need to know the difference between DO and DUE. Fuck it, right? I mean, I'm just speculating here. I'm not sure, but given the fact that he used this guy as a perfect example of what he's talking about, that for me tells me that this is the line of thinking that he would go along. So I don't know.
It's just very interesting because if you look, I mean, if you guys go check this stuff out, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have degrees in law, or PhDs in various different topics, and they do a very bad job in life.
Okay.
There are people in our community.
They do a very bad job at life. I'm not even sure what they do a very bad job at life. Okay. I'm gonna start saying that they do a very bad job at life. I think I understand what he's trying to get at with that, but like what defines doing good in life? Like if we have this nebulous concept of success, right? It means something, and we know that we want to strive for it. Well, who is then the arbiter of what is success? What defines it? How do we measure it? What? Because to me, it seems like just another, just really frivolous concept that people just kind of throw out there. Just they assume that everyone just intuits like what that means, and I don't know. Like what success for me is definitely related to monetary standards, sure, but it's not all that it's related to. I would say probably 70 to 80% of being successful would deal with currently we live in a capitalistic society, so it's no wonder, right? But being independently wealthy would definitely be a quick and easy indicator of success. that would be a really easy one. You could definitely point at other things that would, let's say, well, this person has really good peace of mind because they're doing good things, they're philanthropists, whatever, and that would also be success. But are those secondary or are they tertiary things, or how do we actually determine that? So I think it raises some good questions, but the way that True is talking is as if everyone in their mind intuits the same thing that he does when he says success, because I'm still not sure what he means by this. Like, I'm not trying to make fun of him, because I know certain people hear me criticize their friends and they get pissed off and they call me angry because I simply disagree with them. I don't know who that is. But what does this mean? If I say that I am successful, how many people actually know what I mean? Unless I elucidate just a little bit more on this topic and tell you, well, I have bam, bam, bam. This is what I mean. We're going to be doing the journal club today, Rational. He and I kind of had some stuff come up, so we're going to be doing journal club today. I think he's taking a nap right now, so I wanted to do this beforehand and kind of get this out, because I wanted to chat a little bit before journal club. But yeah, we're still doing journal club. So it's about 40 more minutes. Let's see what he has to say.
Community who have an education and they boast about their education, but they've already put it out there that they're having a very hard time in life. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to attack anybody personally.
He's talking about me.
The information out there. So I think people need to try to stop and slow down with the personal attacks, because it's not going to get anybody anywhere.
So to give you a bit of backstory, he made some comments to me today, and I took a screenshot and I sent it to G-Man, and I said, you better come get him before I hurt his feelings. And so pretty much True insinuated that I was collecting cans on the side of a road to afford a shirt, and that the reason why it's something to do with me having a butt belly or some shit like that. It's on JD Kane's page. Go look at, because JD Kane shared his last, not this video, but JD Kane shared the last video that he made, and he's making comments like that to me. And I had actually typed up some really mean shit, because I was in the computer library and I was like, he is pissed. Like, he got pissed. He's getting personal. And of course he's crying about everyone else getting personal after the fact. But I erased what I had, because he had said something about his life, and he's alluded to it here, about living in cars and shit like that. And he had said something else, and I caught wind of it. And I said, you know what, I could really use this as an example of just how pathetic he is. But I said, I'm not going to do that. I somewhat made mention to it in that thread, but then I walked away from it. Yeah, people, we're going to talk about it some. Then I'm not sure if we're going to invite people in on the onset or a little bit later, but people are definitely invited to join. We want people to come and interact for Journal Club. But I overheard this personal thing, and he put it out there, and I heard it because my wife was playing it in the living room. And she was interacting with him, and my wife and I, again, are two separate people. She thinks the best of everybody. She didn't want to be caught in the drama, all that stuff. That's fine. I respect her decision to do so. But when I heard it, I was like, this answers some questions that I had. And I go, you know what? He probably does have a worse life than me, and it might be why he's such a shitty person. Some people take the bad stuff that's happened in their life and they just become shitty people because they wrap themselves up in victimhood. I think True is one of those people. But he did, and I will acknowledge this, I pointed out that I could have gone in on him, and that the last time he tried that with me, I hurt his feelings so bad that he made a video going, oh, Drag, you say mean stuff, you don't know what people are going through. And it's that series is still up there. It's called Dismantling the Magic Man. I think I made about 4 or 5 videos about dismantling the Magic Man. And the reason, I can't click on it because it's going to stop the video. But it's, let's see, too late for me. Oh, damn, come on, Rational. I made mention to it, and then I just kind of walked away from it, because it's there are even certain limits that I don't want to go to, because I already know what's going to happen. I know based on what he's already said that my life is better than his. The conversation doesn't need to go there. Even though he's stoking the flames further by trying to take shots at me being broke for the last 2 months, and even though I said, hey, you know what? Shit has gone off the fucking rails. Luckily, I have a viewer base who is very appreciative of the content, and people help me out. Just like I, in the past, have helped out tons of people when they were in need. I didn't see him helping out anybody. I didn't see him starting GoFundMes, doing charities. I didn't see him doing any of this stuff. I recently had that debate with G-Man, and I raised $100 to send to victims of Hurricane Harvey. So, in the midst of him talking about or alluding to my financial struggles for the last 2 months, he has completely forgotten about all that other stuff. It just completely skipped his mind because he wanted to be malicious. And as somebody who has a fucking 3rd-degree black belt in shit talk, I saw that as an opportunity to go open season on him. But I said, it's not worth it. It's not. Like, it's really not worth it. Because, like, it's obvious to me that he has such a shitty life that this is all he has. And he probably does need a hug. He probably does need somebody to comfort him at night. He probably does need somebody to go, hey man, you need to chill. Does he have somebody he can just call up and be like, hey man, come meet me at the local Wingstop? I do. Does he have somebody to lay next to him at that night and give him a kiss on the head? I do. You know, I know he doesn't have that. So, what good would it be for me to give in to the urge to put my foot up his ass? Because all it's going to do is cause him to get sick again and get upset. I'm going to get another angry phone call. And the shit's just going to keep repeating. So, and thank you, Hannah, for mentioning that. There's been a few people who have offered to go up and see the dude. In that thread, if y'all click on it, TE lies. He outright lies. Says, Drag has never apologized to me. All he does is insult people. He insulted Shani. That's all Drag does. I said, oh, really? I have an entire video called A Tribute to Ronnie. The video is literally called a tribute to Ronnie. So I've shown him that video. He's seen that video. He responded to that video at one point. The video's gone now. But he knew that video existed. And I keep it around for this express purpose of when he does fabricate things. And he does say that I don't have any remorse and I'm just perpetuating, drama. And that I'm doing nothing to help stop it. Well, that's a lie. I've offered him to come and talk during the Journal Club. He and I can do dual series. He can do science education videos, like chemistry education videos in his channel. I can do some on my channel. We can do problems together. I've offered. But he does not take me up on offers that get away from the drama. What he does engage me on, and you'll actually see, if you actually go and read that thread, you'll actually see him engage people who are vitriolic towards him. But then you'll see people go, how about we tackle these issues that you've claimed? No, he won't respond to that. He responds to the negativity, but then complains about drama. And so that's what I don't understand. If you hate drama so much, why make this video? Because even though he did apologize in that video, he's still alluding to it here. In the thread, he apologized for it, and I 1 + 1 whatever, like the thing. Okay, cool. I acknowledge your apology, and I post my video, not like whatever. But he's still perpetuating it because he didn't have to mention that. I was going to leave it alone since he apologized, since he wanted to squash it. But it seems as though, to me, that he's so bitter
he's so miserable that he has to keep it going. So here's what I want someone to do. That person I sent that text message to earlier, G-Man, remember I sent you that text message and I told you to come get him? You tell your buddy, you check him. If he wants to stop drama, he has to actually stop drama. You just can't sit on the sidelines and clap and cheer for him when he says the big old meanie drag things, you know. Because I let it go. I reposted my video that was an olive branch, and he's still perpetuating the shit. People are pointing it out on the thread, and other people now who are watching this. So if we want to talk about having a discourse and not, you know, making things personal, how does any of this help? And while we're at it, can we need rules of engagement. But before I get into that, let me play the last 15 minutes.
If you guys got a point to make regarding the topics at hand, your education is somehow connected with that, then I'd say bring it up. But other than that, I don't think we need to hear it.
Okay, so when those of us who do mention our education, it's because it does deal directly with the topic. When we talk about DNA and what happens in water, I've had to put DNA in water and go through the whole PCR process. And everyone else who mentioned their education have also done that. So it tends to be very pertinent. And when education is brought up in general, it's usually in reference to, okay, there is a certain requisite level of knowledge that you need to have in order to understand it. Like that's, and every time education comes up, it's one of those two things. And so there is no way to broach that topic without hurting feelings, because it's quite clear that you really can't address this topic without hurting his feelings. Like, it's really clear to me. So Fiona said, why can't? Because I think he blocked you, Fiona. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh. Okay. Yeah, should be able to respond. But yeah, how? So because I saw Hogtie asked this question, and it's based off something I brought up. How do we broach the topic of education? If there is simply, if one party is taking a position and there's so much stuff being missed because of a lack of education, how do we go into that topic? Maybe True or Veckel or G-Man or one of these guys, Tommy, whoever, can make a video explaining the proper way to engage if everyone's doing it wrong. And so we can be receptive to that, because from my point of view, I don't see a way to do that. Because when Fiona goes, what are you talking about? I've done that before. And then you just, oh, here she goes again, talking about education. Well, it's because it's pertinent. You're talking about something that you think you understand versus someone who did it for years. If we're talking about, let's say if there's Tommy talking about what happens to genes under certain conditions and what the data shows, well, look, we have someone who works in genetics who's a data scientist. You know, it's interesting, because in order to ascertain what a particular paper says about whatever phenomenon, you have to actually have some knowledge about, one, the jargon, and two, the topic. I can't go and look at Richard Carrier's review of biblical text unless I have at least just the jargon down, like at a very minimum. Like if I don't understand certain techniques, like the Bayes theorem, like if I don't understand Bayes theorem and he's using that as a basis for whatever argument he's making, I first have to understand that. And so again, this goes back to, you need a certain requisite level of knowledge to engage the topic and really understand it. This whole stuff that we're talking about with DNA and water and all this other stupid shit is so far flung from the topic that it's laughable. And people wonder why it keeps being brought up. Well, that we can't get past it. We can't get past it, not because it's controversial, but because we have individuals who are beyond reproach. And the simple fact that True, G-Man, Spoken, Antonio, the fact that they're beyond reproach makes this conversation that much more difficult. Because people can pull me aside and say, you know what, Drag, that's too mean. You know what, Drag, I think you should stop doing this. Hell, I opened a hangout where people did exactly that. So let's not pretend like there's just bad stuff on both sides. No, there are bad things and bad ideas and stupid things that are said on my, I guess, side, if you want to call it that. But then they get called out by people. I've been one of the people who have called out, and I've been called out. I don't see the same thing coming from the Clown Car Posse side. I really don't see that. If I've been blind to it, please show me. Tag me somewhere. Show me. Because I don't see that level, and I stick by this, where there's a lack of integrity, just in general. In order to be among that inner circle of people, nephew included, there's a lack of integrity. There's a lack of integrity when they are telling people, well, what the science says. For one thing, here we go again. How have you acquired that information? Because what science says, there are certain resources that can act as communicators for that. If you got misinformation from a pop science website, that can be addressed quite readily, actually. Be addressed, which is not a big deal. Not a huge deal. It happens. I will fully acknowledge everybody who has ever had any type of formal or informal training in science knows that pop science is its own worst enemy. They use clickbait. They mislead folks. They assume that people have, just requisite knowledge that they need to understand stuff. It happened in one of G-Man's videos where he misunderstood atmospheric O2 for, it was something else. I forgot what it was, but it had something to do with atmospheric O2, basically. Or it might have been actually water vapor. I think it might have been not O2. So, G-Man didn't understand the difference, and so he got confused. Completely understandable. But that's different than people reading a headline, not understanding what the terminology is, and then going, oh, this proves my point. Then when people who are more educated in the topic go, I think you're misreading that, and try to explain, that's when the shit hits the fan. Jared, not playing devil's advocate, do you think we've left all over him for his aqueous solution gap unfairly? I don't think we've left over him unfairly on that, because what people have reinforced is not necessarily a gaffe itself, is that he hasn't actually understood why we've latched onto it, because he keeps saying, well, they think I'm wrong. That's not why. And I keep bringing up this word for a reason, shibboleth. There's a certain way you honestly talk about topics when you're knowledgeable about it. There's really little fuzzy ground when it comes to, if someone were to say, Drag, what makes a solution? A solute plus a fucking solvent. That's literally it. If I start telling you, well, sometimes there's an aqueous solvent, and there's a solute that can be a salt, but sometimes it's not a salt. Sometimes it can be a liquid, but maybe it's kind of aqueous. Like, the first answer was the best answer. The second answer sounds like somebody who didn't study for a fucking test and just making up shit, oral exam, excuse me. That's what the second one sounds like. The second one is true when he talks about stuff. And that's why a lot of us go, huh? What? What do you mean? Oh, hold on for a second. That's when the red flags go up. It really has little to do with his personality, because I know he's just kind of a shitty person, but that's him. Like, he has full right to be a shitty person. But when I go, okay, well, let me evaluate what he's saying, these red flags come up over and over and over again. And then when you ask different people, did you see this? Did you hear him say this? Does that sound right to you? And you'll even see me sometimes take my phone and I'll play out loud like some of the stuff, or I'll read off something that he said to just a random person. And then they'll go, what? It doesn't make sense, because it's incoherent. So you can't, there's no way to address what's painfully obvious with the conversation, because you have people who don't really have a lot of integrity, who will be as honest as they can be with the topic. Where you have example G-Man, like I said before, go and search man transform into monkey debunk evolution refutation. He won't actually go, okay, let me just look at Wikipedia and see what Wikipedia has to say. Okay, they have a link to Texas A&M University. They have a link to NIH. Okay, I don't want to really read all this. Let me skim through it. Let me take some notes. I got this book. I would rather sit here and read a book. He's less likely to do that than go to AIG and read a bunch of fucking bullet points, because the bullet points are just easier to read. That's lazy. That's absolutely fucking lazy. Like, there's no way to get around that. There's literally no way to get around that. It comes down to sheer laziness. I can't do that when I go and try and learn about philosophy, because I love to go and read about philosophical stuff. My first thing is to go to Wikipedia. If I'm not too sure what's going on, I have people I can go to. I know I can message, I can go message Ozzy and go, hey, can I pull you into an off-air hangout? Do you have some time? Let me discuss this with Ozzy. Let me take some fucking notes. Ozzy mentioned this. Let me go back to Wikipedia. You know what? Wikipedia is not that great of a source. Let me get some recommendations. Oh, let me go to Max Hangs Out. Let me go to a variety of sources. What do you recommend that I look up? Oh, there's this book. There's Stanford University website. Okay, cool. Love it. I love university websites where they're actively pursuing knowledge in this topic. Not a huge fan of Wikipedia when I want to really get in depth. I know how to conduct some type of research and get a variety of input from people who are genuinely knowledgeable. Okay, so then here's a whole nother thing that I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent because there's so much. I did ask G-Man, how does he gauge people's skill? Because this has been, who the fuck is Negro Slave, really? Do you like CDs and tapes? Well, I'm going to tape my dick to your face so you can see these nuts. That's funny. That's funny. No, nobody mess with Negro Slave. He's pretty funny. That's actually really good. So anyway, I needed that laugh. So I asked G-Man, and this, I don't tell everybody all of my conversations. I'll make reference to them because some things are important. People have contacted me privately and have asked me, how does G-Man gauge skill levels? Like, how does he gauge how good someone is or how knowledgeable someone is? They're better than someone else and whatever the topic is. I've wondered that myself because it seems like it changes daily, because he'll say, oh, this person's really good at this, and for me, formal education is generally a good way to determine how knowledgeable someone is, because you've actually had to pass through a third party, someone who is obviously knowledgeable, in order to gain that formal education. So yes, I will tend to defer to people who have formal education because, hell, it's more structured. You don't simply pick and choose different things. It tends to be comprehensive. There are actual reasons why I prefer formal education, and most people do. So let's not just pretend like that everyone has the capabilities of being autodidactic. I know only a handful of people who are truly autodidactic, and they really don't need school. So it doesn't really fit everybody. So from what G-Man described, he says that there's everything comes down to a binary. If you ever have any questions about how G-Man views things, literally everything's a binary, and that bothers me to no end, but I leave it alone. There's no shades of gray, unfortunately. So that's probably why he doesn't understand nuance and context very well, which is starting to make sense since it started to make sense. But anyway, G-Man does not like people who simply can read and read and read and read and have and just memorize the contents of a book and simply regurgitate it word for word, or just paraphrase it and just regurgitate it. He's not a huge fan of that. I said, okay, so what do you then prefer? Well, and he kind of described, and I'm going to try my best to describe this. So if I get this wrong, pretty sure G-Man's watching. If I get this wrong, feel free to make a video explaining this. I would love to watch a video explaining this. I'm sure other people would too. What G-Man would prefer is someone who can read the material and then they can critically analyze it. And I'm trying to use the words that he used. Critically analyze it and then find a way to incorporate it into some type of application. And so I was still kind of at a loss for what he really meant by that, because it really didn't tell me anything. Like, he used words in a sentence and I don't have anything to attach it to. So I was like, okay, well, G-Man, if I read my chemistry book and it says, you know, to make a solution, you need a solute plus a solvent. So if me and somebody else read the same thing, where's the difference between us? Like, how, just illustrate that. And so he didn't want to use that example. He wanted to use social science. And so someone, you know, reads something in psychology, and rather than the person just repeating what was in the book, the person who can take that and use that social psychology on people, that person is actually skilled. So okay, well, that kind of tells me somewhat of what he means. But with that, I think what he's trying to get at is that people who are more adept at the communication part of whatever the science, whatever the skill is, and can use analogies and can illustrate, are much better than people who can just regurgitate stuff word for word. I think that's what he means. I'm trying to be extremely charitable here, and I kind of see his point. If I just repeat to you the definition, what did I learn the other day? I learned what an efficiency gap is in political science. If I just read you off the definition, you'll probably kind of get it, but after I explain it and there's illustrations and stuff, you'll probably understand better, of course, using visual aids. I always think that people who use visual aids are probably going to, you know, have a more receptive crowd than people who don't. But here's the interesting thing. Then how can I then translate that into how he gauges knowledge on science? Because if you, and I'm genuinely curious who he thinks is better. If I were to say, there's two people I could pick out the entire community to teach me molecular genetics. Either scientist Sam, who has actually taught people, or Neffy. Which one would G-Man say? Sam or Neffy? Because I've seen and I've heard G-Man boost Neffy up to the level of scientist Sam, and not indirectly, but allude to the fact that he believes that they're on the same level. Now, mind you, I can't remember when he's directly said that, but based on how he's promoted Neffy, it sounds like he believes that. And I've personally talked to Neffy recently. There is no fucking way in this life or the next that is true. No goddamn way. Just none. Absolutely none. None. And that's just from me talking to him. I understand Sam and I are friends. Sam will call me out when I'm wrong, and I will do the same for him. Steve the same way. I don't think G-Man has the integrity to call one of his friends out unless it's flat earth. Like, that's the only time I've actually seen him do that. Again, G-Man, he admires people who can speak with authority and disagrees with his enemies. That's all. And that's really what I think it is. I've been studying for my next quiz. I've been playing D&D online. It's much better than arguing with atheists online. Yes, Bill, I would definitely agree with that. That to me is baffling. That's truly baffling. And for I almost made mention to his background. There are people in our community who are far more educated than me, and I recognize that. People know that Ozzy doesn't have a degree in philosophy, but people defer to him as if he does. So there's not this thing where all of us are just looking for degrees. And Ozzy will tell you that, you know, he thinks Jack Angstrite is very knowledgeable and has learned stuff from Jack Angstrite, even though he doesn't have a real formal education. So it's really about taking knowledge that is already there and then being able to communicate it in an effective manner. I think that's the true mark of education, along with taking correction. Taking correction is one of the biggest hallmarks of education, and I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress that point enough. How do you learn if you can't be corrected? If I am trying to, I'm just giving you an example. If I'm learning how to measure chemical equilibrium and I'm learning how to build an ice table to find KEQ, whatever, and I keep disagreeing with my instructor that the variable for change goes in the E slot instead of the C slot. This is the guy that he has the degree, he's teaching the class. If I'm disagreeing with him, how am I learning shit? Like, I can disagree with him, but at the end of the day, you know, it's incumbent upon me to be receptive to it. So how, I'm taking this shit off. Oh, fuck y'all. All right. So for me, for anyone, what in my mind, what in G-Man's mind makes him think that Neffy is knowledgeable in these topics? Because then I have to think, well, what does he look for? I have to go back now and think. If he said that people who don't simply regurgitate information, because I think that he thinks that I just regurgitate information, and I don't. I can't do that. If you hear me quote someone, I often paraphrase because I can't remember verbatim what people say. I remember snippets, and I attach what they believe to concepts I already know. But what has Neffy said that would make him think that he's knowledgeable on this topic? Because I guarantee you, what the hell? Fuck it. There we go. Dragnaut, I've known about Neffy years before I even heard about you and GDC, and the man can't communicate worth shit. Yeah, and thank you. You bring up a really good point. People have been watching Neffy. I've been watching. I know Neffy's been around for fucking ever. Neffy is like he's fucking ancient. But when we had people like speaking of old heads, Concordance. Who remembers Concordance? He hides his person. He hides his face and shit because of his family, because of his job. But fuck, Concordance knows his shit. He could link you to shit that he was talking about. But I'm just like, what has Neffy said to make him think that he knows this stuff? Drag, you understand that he basically thinks Neffy is the second coming of Jesus, right? He has way higher opinions of Neff than anyone should. Yeah, I completely agree, Sabella. I completely fucking agree. I completely agree. But it's like, I have to ask myself, so what has, because applying G-Man's scale here, I have to wonder then if there's a Neffy and an anti-Neffy, I guess, you know, someone just regurgitating facts. Who has he seen just kind of regurgitate facts? And then, like, how has Neffy communicated a point so that he understood it in the way that he kind of explained it to me the other night? And I'm like, hold on for a second, something's not right. Something doesn't make sense. I've never heard Neffy communicate an accurate phenomenon science. I've never heard him say it, not to my recollection, accurately depict something in science. And I've personally spoken to him quite a few times back in the day. So maybe I just forgot. Okay, let me just say, you know what? I'll give G-Man that. I said, okay. Well, what about TE? Have I missed something? Well, no, because there's people who've been dealing with TE forever. On Raw, I've spoken to him about TE before. DPR Jones has dealt with him. He's the host of Magic Sandwich Show, and he and I had the same exact opinion. So what's going on? So I said, okay, well, let me go back. True empiricism, TE. Yeah, TE who? Yeah, I had to remind Aaron who TE was, and I still had the screenshot of that. But okay, so G-Man has said that the person who's able to take the information, not just regurgitate it now, not just give him lines, because that doesn't do anything for him. Fair enough. But the person who can take it and apply it and really analyze it and get to what it really means, that's who he latches onto. That person has skill. So what has TE said that is just so miraculous that he learned so much from? And I go, wait a goddamn minute. Wait a second. Didn't I ask a whole bunch of people what they learned from him? I could have sworn. I said, you know what? Fuck the drama. You know what? Fuck all that. What has he put out there? What has he put forth that they legitimately learn from? It's real science now. If it, human chromosome 2, whatever. So something in genetics maybe? I don't know. Whatever. What did TE put out that convinced G-Man? And I said, you know what? I asked him that in New York, and he couldn't give me an answer because he mentioned DNA and water. And I said, okay, so what's the verdict, G-Man? Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask TE. What? Hold on for a fucking second. So you're certain that T knows what the fuck he's talking about, and you defend, and I admire that shit. He defended, it wasn't just for show, it's not just for the internet. He defended TE in person. Fucking bravo. That's a good friend. All right. Okay. So what made you think that he actually understands this stuff? And assuming we're all poopy heads, none of us know this shit. We've been able to somehow matriculate through fucking formal education for our various countries and various degrees and shit, just randomly and passively, whatever. Okay, cool. Whatever. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. What convinced you that what he says is accurate and something that fits that definition? But you don't know, you can't articulate at all to me what the situation is. What was his position on it? So it's like, okay, then it goes back to my original premise. Well, there is nothing. This is someone who simply espoused the same view as me, and I have to show solidarity. That's all it is. So, as somebody who is a TE detractor, what am I then supposed to do with that? Am I supposed to go, okay, well, I think that... Oh, Arm just sent me a message. So what am I supposed to do? What is there for me to latch onto? If we want to just toss aside all the bullshit, all the drama, all the nonsense, let's not get personal. What is there for me to address that he has brought up that we could sit down and talk about? Because DNA dissolving in water is a non-issue. And that's really what it is. It's a non-fucking issue. I know because I've dissolved DNA in water and I've replicated DNA. Point blank clear. You can literally watch people do it. That's how we do paternity tests. Non-issue. We'll skip over it. He misspoke. Okay. Bam. Done. TE misspoke. So, what position then did this come from? Oh, it stemmed from a conversation that he and I had ages ago. And I mean ages ago, where you can call it a conversation. I was fucking being me. A less refined me. And getting him to try and repeat stuff and be clear. Really wasn't much of a fucking conversation, but it is what it is, right? I've had way better conversations. And yes, I actually did make mistakes in there. He's still not caught on to what those mistakes were, but Jade actually caught on to a few of them. Me misspeaking. But okay, so let me get real. What did he want to get at? What was the core thing? Abiogenesis is impossible because the genetic material would not have survived. It's unlikely that it even formed. If it did form, it would not have survived. That's not an uncommon argument from people who are radically evangelical. So let's talk about that. What are the merits for this argument? How did he come to that conclusion? How can we get this conversation back on track? Because for me, we're still arguing about the minutia and that the he said, she said, and all this other bullshit that we really can't get back on that track because that's where the conversation stalled. Well, why did it stall? Well, because those evil atheists are evil atheists. Well, no. It stalled because we can't discuss what could have possibly happened because the person taking the position of it being impossible has fundamentally misunderstood something very basic, no pun intended, about chemistry. The chemistry that would be required for any of this stuff to happen. Hell, anything, literally. So how can we pick this up? Well, we have to broach the topic somehow about him being wrong. Well, he's not wrong. So where do we go? Again, it keeps going back to the same thing. We can't defer to the experts on this because they're biased, supposedly. We can't look at the literature because it comes from those biased sources. Okay. So what are we left with then? We're left with people on the internet who have no formal education in these topics. Okay. Some of them are self-taught. Cool. They were self-taught with what? How do I know this guy was self-taught and he's just not talking out of his ass? Because if we acknowledge that formal education is the gold standard, then we kind of sort of have to defer to where the bulk of the knowledge is. And the bulk of the knowledge says fairly recently that what True has claimed is actually false. In fact, we did a journal club on what happened. We have some pretty strong evidence of how these bonds are formed between certain molecules and how the ones that were less conducive toward that system were then recycled. We talked about that. TE did not want to join for whatever reason. Maybe he was at work, maybe he just didn't want to. Who knows? But the conversation persists even without him. So there is an opportunity for conversation. There's an opportunity for non-drama, but I don't see the people complaining about it making an effort toward it. I see people who want to perpetuate the drama and then just proclaim that they want to talk about things of substance. That's what I see, because I've made the effort on my part, at least I think so. If not, I'll open up another hangout where people can criticize me. Okay, I don't think formal education is the gold standard exactly. It's the formal certification that matters. If you're self-educated, you can write the exams and get a degree, you're golden. Oh, okay, very, very good point, Shar. Very good point. Very good point. And actually, to Shar's point, there are certain states, and MP can correct me if I'm wrong, there are certain states where you don't have to go to law school. If you simply pass the bar exam, you can obtain that certification to teach law in those states. I cannot remember what those states are, but I know there's a handful. I know Louisiana is definitely not one of them, but that's actually a really good point. There's some standard, simply being in a classroom. That's a more refined point. That's a better point. Again, and this is a perfect example. I was able to actually reevaluate what I was saying and what I was thinking, take in new information and go, you know what? That's actually a really better point. It's really not hard. It's not a mar against me because I think she has a better point now that she explained it. Oh, somebody has a list. California, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, Wyoming. Yep, there we go. So, yeah. So, you can just pass the certification and then teach law. You can, do law. And so that's a perfect example. So, I think that the people who are railing against formal education typically just really don't understand how valuable it is, or formal certification. Either way, they don't truly appreciate the opportunities that it has. Because one of the reasons I'll say personally, and this is just very, very practice law. Thank you. Yes, that is the actual phrase, practice law. One of the reasons why I value formal education is because I've had to earn it. I didn't just go to school. I couldn't just. I tried taking out loans. That's no longer. Taking out loans is no longer an option for me. I had to serve and earn the right to go back to school. So I think just intrinsically, I value formal education more because of that, and that's something that I've had to realize after having conversations with people, because to others it may come across, I guess, as me being a bit snobbish, but you tend to value things more that you really have to earn, and having to do that allow me to place a higher value. So, Drag, you slept in the car though. I have slept in the car on my own volition, not because I had to. And you know, if it makes me a less shitty person of not gone through that, you know what, I'll take that one. But but yeah, it's I think it's very interesting when we say that the dialogue needs to change, that things need to get back on track to where we're having conversation, because it didn't used to always be like this. It didn't used to be, you know, oh, I won't go in your hangout, and people just get all pissy and they make a rant, and you know, they stomp their feet for a few days and they'll go off and all that kind of shit. You used to be able to, even people like God TV Radio, Brett Keane. You used to be able to, Brett Keane would open up and he would say, you know what, I'll take all comers. True used to be like that too. So I think it is interesting how things have devolved into now I will sit in my corner and yell at you, and you know, that's it. Okay, well, T took down the video. I already downloaded it. He says that people were complaining about the audio quality. I didn't look at the comments, but yeah, he took down the video. He's just going to do a hangout later. But yeah, he could feel free to watch this video and get my actual position on stuff, and that the ball's in his court. It really is. If he wants better conversations, he has to put forth the effort. To be fair, the sniping issue has changed a lot. That's a very good point. That is a very good point, and that is something that G-Man has mentioned to me, because he's quite tired of people sniping him, which he should be. And I've openly and continuously condemned people sniping G-Man's hangouts. You don't have to like G-Man. You know what, he can be a shitty person. I'll be the first person to tell you that. But don't snipe his fucking hangouts like that. You really don't need to be an asshole and do that. Like, it's, you know, we all enjoy a good fucking G-Man rant when he's saying all kind of shit. He's all angry. It's funny to everybody. But no, I don't think he'll make an open hangout. I don't think True has the thick skin to have open hangouts anymore. It's just, he's just kind of gotten to the point that his online ego is so bruised that he can't really take it. So I mean, it's, maybe he'll take a hiatus and come back feeling refreshed, but I mean, until then, you know, it's just kind of, well, he'll just go where he feels safe. If he feels safe there, he'll go and hang out. But that's why I'll give props to Spoken. I'll give props to Tommy. They'll actually engage people still, and they'll actually, you know, put themselves on the hot seat and defend what they believe, and that's something to be admired. I still disagree with them both vehemently, but that is something definitely to be admired about them. So, yes, Shadow, I don't think they're going to take you up on that, because that requires trust. I mean, you know, having a corporate hangout is definitely a nice asset, but maybe you can try and reach out. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Wish he'd take a few months off and take a few courses and actually learn something. Yeah, it's crazy. I've noticed that over the last few years, I have definitely learned a lot, and people can go back and watch my videos. And some people have been like who is it? Kylo Ren. Kenny has been watching some of my old videos because he'll comment occasionally, and people who will just randomly go back and watch some of my old videos, I have learned a lot, and I have been just like dead wrong about shit, and I've changed my positions on a lot of stuff. If you look at some of the dudes that we talk to, I'm just going to use Veckel as an example now because I've been messing with G-Man too long. Veckel has learned dick all. Like, it's amazing how much he has not learned. And it's shocking, because some of the same shit that you could do with Veckel and really get him caught up, he still falls for. And I think that's one of the reasons why he doesn't engage anymore, because people kind of figured them out. Because he has a short list of words that he can use. Opinion, subjective, arbitrary, and some sound that he makes when he thinks he says something clever. I got that last one from from Ocean on Facebook, but that's really it. Like he doesn't have the capability, because he used to have a series called Thank God for Atheism, and it was a pretty funny series. Like if you ever saw Veckel's Thank God for Atheism series, he would just go off, and it wasn't as fun and as energetic and like emotive as G-Man's rants and when he goes crazy, but they were funny. Like they were really good. But yeah. Being you bring up a good point. I think Veckel did not like Skyler taking portions like he would be lazy as fuck. Like he would just take like 30 minutes. He would take 30 minutes and just add like captions to it, and he would just go like, "Really? Let's hear that again." And then he would just play it, because Veckel would say some wild shit. Like he would just say some, atheists think that they can just eat their own shit and feed it to their children. Like he'll say weird, like I completely made that up. That's completely fictitious. But he would say wild shit, and so a lot of people wouldn't catch it. But then when you rewind it, you go, did he really fucking say that? And then people would lay into him in the comments, and then he would see it, and then he'd make a video, here's Skylar Fixon misrepresenting me, and then he would play the same fucking video and then go, you see the lie? And it's like, he didn't do anything. He has the whole fucking clip and played your fucking rant from end to end. He didn't add anything other than captions. And it was like snarky captions. It wasn't, he's lying, liar, pants on fire. It would be more like, look, listen closely. Like it's shit like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is Veckel hearing that we don't hear? And so, yeah, I think that was probably like some of the funniest shit ever. The dissenting from what? Are you late to the show? Deep Ashtray, man. I went into dissenting shit from earlier. I need to actually get back on that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, him being a Calvinist has a lot to do with kind of his. I don't think Calvinism changes people. I think certain people are just inclined to be Calvinists because of their personalities. I believe, and this is just somewhat founded in my personal interactions with a lot of Calvinists. I think the further you can push your head up your ass, and the more you believe in a God, the more likely you'll become a Calvinist. Like that it really seems like this, like the most undeserved, arrogant dickwads become Calvinists. I'm not sure really what it is, but they tend to have just one or two like wheelhouses, like just their Calvinistic beliefs and maybe one other thing. But outside of that, like they don't know shit. Like it's bad. But they're sure of themselves. They're special. Like they're special in somebody's eyes, and it's like that's a real like I didn't know about Calvinism until I came to the internet and came to this place, the internet. I wouldn't run across people like that in real life. They're weird. Yeah, Veckel is very sexist, by the way. If you've not heard him in the past, it's like you ain't got no room to talk about nobody and what they should be doing, dude. But that's another story. Dragon, do you think G-Man believes that when he says that the internet is where atheism comes? No, he says stuff like that because he's upset. Like he does. I don't. Let me preface what I'm saying. I know he says things when he's upset. When he says stuff like that, that's bravado. Okay, it's really just bravado. Well, the reason he says that is because he used to see the videos where people would make atheist like their mottos. Internet is where Christianity comes to die, or religion comes to die. He's seen videos like that. And he used to respond to them because he used to get kind of like excited and shit, or incited, I should say, actually. So a lot of the stuff that you hear G-Man say is him rewording things that people have said. A lot of his arguments, actually, if you take a chronological look in the annals of YouTube history for G-Man, look at the videos that he makes, and you'll see kind of a, I hate to call it a progression, because progress assumes that he's learned something, but he takes people's arguments, and I noticed this very early on. He stole the phrase from Aaron Raw. Okay, that's where that's where he got it from. He takes people's arguments and then he morphs them into something that he can then use against someone else, because it's not necessarily, it's more like a lateral move. I don't think he goes backwards. I think he just goes laterally. And I'm trying to think of a good example. So very, 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 very early on, when I first started interacting with G-Man, he didn't understand logical fallacies. Like, there was a whole period in time where he thought that people were just bringing up fallacies just to spite him. Like, he didn't understand how logic even worked. He is famous for saying that he's going to find a way to circumvent logic. I'm not making this shit up. This is evidenced again by him trying to defeat a fallacy. The whole chocolate atheist thing was a testament to that. He literally thought that he could defeat logic. Think about that for a second. So this, it's a cycle, I guess you could say, of him going, okay, I see my opponents using this, so let me fight fire with fire. I see the logic in the logic in what he was trying to do, but again, this is G-Man putting forth an effort toward a goal, and he really he puts a lot of energy into it, but he's not too keen on details. Details and accuracy really aren't his wheelhouse at all. He really doesn't care for details. That ends up biting him in the ass every time, because then people go, when we're talking about this topic actually has like 5 subsets, and you've only addressed like the worst of those 5 that nobody literally uses. Like, that's kind of like a long story short version. And then, of course, he claims that everyone's just being dishonest, when in reality he has a less than cursory understanding of whatever the topic is, and he takes the worst interpretation that he thinks he can defeat, because then he assumes that this applies for everybody. Insert literally any topic that he's ever addressed. So what makes matters worse is that it'll be picked up by True, it'll be picked up by Veckel, it'll be picked up by everybody else, Neffy, all of them, and they'll all swear up and down that whatever this position is what everybody believes, and so they'll then go and attack that huge straw man that they took so much time to create. So if you ever wondered kind of like how the ups and downs go, that's really it. So supposedly Thunderfoot came up with the internet being the place where religion comes to die. Okay, Hogtie has acknowledged that. Hogtie is the oldest, so I'm just going to agree with him. I really don't know, but you see a hot chick in the background? Well, yes, you do. So what do we say? Where do we go? How do we go forward? Well, what can be done from here, from henceforth? What can be done? Because I can tell you places where I've fucked up, and I can tell you places where I've grown. One of the best examples of this, and again, I've taken so many shots at G-Man and some of these other cats. Let me take a shot at myself. I was one of these people who was like, fuck religion, or excuse me, fuck philosophy, not religion, fuck philosophy. People sitting around thinking real hard with a thumb up their asses. Who needs that shit? Fucking science. I was one of those guys. But believe it or not, I wasn't into scientism, but I was one of those guys like, who needs philosophy? And I have definitely learned otherwise. I've definitely learned that you have to understand how to think. Knowing what to think is cool, but how you form cogent thoughts and how you can take those and then turn them into really salient points in a conversation is so important. Not just using philosophy as a bludgeoning tool to say, well, I've memorized a list of 30 fallacies and let me just boom, 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 hit you with, here's why this is a fallacy. Here's why this is a fallacy. Here's why this is a fallacy. Because I see people doing that, and it's like, that's not how that works. That's not how any of this works at all. So that's kind of what I see from a lot of these guys. They'll pick up things and try and use them as bludgeoning tools against people they disagree with, but it doesn't work because typically there's no nuance, there's no context in which a lot of this stuff is put forth, and besides a lot of it being not even germane to the conversation, it just goes nowhere. It gets no traction because what can I get from the original topic of this 2-hour fucking hangout, which was the descent from Darwin. Why does G-Man, why does a lot of the guys in the CCP think that this is significant? Well, from my opinion, the conversation really can't even start until we have a conversation before it. And so let me try and channel G-Man for a second and just think about something. Well, if someone were actually engaging him and they go, G-Man, why is this descent from Darwin thing even a part of the conversation? Why is this a conversation piece? Why is it even here? Well, because there's clearly, you guys aren't being skeptical. Okay, so G-Man has now used a word, and when G-Man uses words, there's kind of a problem sometimes where what he's saying isn't necessarily what he means. So we have to play this game and kind of tiptoe around, fuck, do I just follow it through, or do I follow it through, just let him assume that we mean the same thing and continue on with the conversation, or do I stop here and address it? Because something's going to happen. If I stop him here and go, okay, G-Man, what do you mean by skeptical? Because I'm going to give you my definition after you tell me, and then we can try and continue. You're going to have his buddies go, you guys know what he means. Well, no, we don't. Because when we do, and when we think we know what Tommy means and true means, it's something completely fucking different. And then we hear that word again. It's just semantics. Semantics. For one thing, y'all don't know what that fucking word means. If I tell Hogtie, man, that beaver is fucking ginormous, and he goes, no, it's gigantic. They're literally synonyms. That's being semantic. Okay? If he says or if that platypus over there is a monotreme, and I go, no, it's a reptile, actually. Well, you're just being semantic. No, a reptile is not a fucking monotreme. They're two completely separate fucking things. They're not even remotely close to each other. So what G-Man has now kind of cued in on is the use of the word semantics that he picked up from somebody else. A part of me thinks that he didn't actually look up the definition and look up examples of what that word means, but because now it's a part of this flak wall that he's kind of created when people tell him something. But then again, that goes back to, where can you actually correct any of these guys? Because he'll be the first one to tell you that he thinks he's smart because he's memorized the dictionary. Well, if I've memorized the dictionary, what would that entail? Would that entail that I have an expansive control of the English language? Would that also entail me understanding what these words mean? Because if you say that, if you acknowledge that, and then I go, you know what? Based on this knowledge that you've already acknowledged that I have, wouldn't you think that I would be in a better position to figure out whether this usage is right or not? Well, no, that has nothing. Well, see, that's yet another issue. How do we broach this topic? Because you can't. You literally can't tell these dudes that they're wrong about anything. I don't care about being wrong about the Bible. I'll take the correction. I don't give a fuck. I get a chance to learn. But you can't do the same thing for them. Hogtie has asked this question formally. Where, how, when can you tell one of these dudes that they're fucking wrong? About anything. About small shit. How? What is the way? Somebody tell me. Make me a fucking diagram. I don't know. Hold on, somebody's typing me, y'all. Okay. Serious question, Dragonite. Did you really memorize the dictionary? No, I watch TV with the closed captioning on. I have apps on my phone with word of the day. Okay. Yeah, so what's the last thing I said? Yeah, I have Apple. I used to have an app on my phone that gave me the word of the day. And so I would slowly start trying to incorporate more words into my personal lexicon. It's hot as fucking here. That's why I have my shirt off. So that's how I increase my, because I've found out that by me moving to different areas, that the way that I speak is different than the way people around me speak. So when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. And you can't blame people for not understanding you. And this is so important. This is really important. Let me focus this shit for a second. You really can't blame people for misunderstanding you when you don't articulate yourself properly. Yes, I have shorts on. And I see this way too often. And that's when just like, who was it that was trying to defend Ronnie with his last statement about aqueous solutions? Anybody who has taken, again, it goes back to fucking education. You see these themes, they keep coming back up for a reason. They keep coming back up for a reason because it's a continuous fucking problem and they're all intertwined. People who have taken just one course in fucking chemistry understand how to make a solution. It's literally two things, a solvent and a solution. That's it. You can add other shit in there if you want to. You can piss in it if you want to. It's still going to be a solution. So what True was saying was incoherent in respect to what the facts of the matter are. Period. Point blank fucking period. There is a particular way that you talk about topics when you're knowledgeable about them. We can bicker about people using more precise terms, but then that goes back to articulation. That goes back to being clear. That goes back to how concise you are with what needs to be said and how you communicate. But that's incumbent upon the person saying the fucking statement in the first place. So I don't want to hear these fucking sob stories. I really don't. Drag, since you memorized the dictionary, what comes after idiot in the book? I mean, G-Man's picture is next to idiot, so I figured you would know. I don't know, man. I haven't looked at it in a while. But it was incumbent upon me to be able to code switch so that people can understand me when I say stuff. And that's when you hear me pause, I have to translate what I say so that people have an understanding of what I'm trying to at least say, but I don't get upset. I got a phone call yesterday where somebody pointed out that I had said, I said modicum instead of modicum. I said, oh, okay, thank you. And then I correctly use it later. I fuck up like that all the time. I think I said depreciating instead of self-deprecating. I didn't make a big deal out of any of that because it's not that fucking important. I get a chance to learn. I take the correction, no matter who it comes from. I don't give a shit. But that speaks to my ability to course correct, to adjust myself. There is no question about how to raise this point with Drag. You send Drag a message and I see it, I have a choice whether or not to act on it. There is no question about that. We don't have to have this conversation about how to approach me. I would love to believe that I'm very approachable. Very approachable. So this problem seems to be based only on one side. How many people have had trouble trying to reach Hogtie when he's been wrong about something? Because there's literally tons of hangouts where there's literally, I keep saying literally, I got that from my son, a 3-hour hangout where Rumpus is arguing with Hogtie, and I think it was about sublimation. I want to say it was a 3-hour hangout. They had an entire hangout discussing the merits of this argument. It wasn't them calling each other idiots. It was them discussing it. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. A ginormous difference. Drake Knight, I sketched a little fan art for you, no joke. You've inspired artistic drive to me tonight. Well, thank you. But it's like it's really incumbent upon the person who is communicating to know, for one thing, what the fuck they're talking about, and understand that there are people who may be out and about who do know more than you, and if you get something wrong, they might say something about it. First, that's the very first thing. Know the fucking topic. And second, be able to communicate effectively. Some people have heard me speak because I got tired of code switching. Some people hear what I say to my son and they go, "What was Drag saying? What I didn't catch that." And people genuinely just don't hear because I speak fast, and some of what I had to say contains a lot of nuance. If you don't get the nuance, then you probably won't understand. So I know that I have to change what I'm saying, maybe change it, slow the cadence down, change the verbiage, whatever. But I'm not going to get upset when people bring up the fact that I didn't catch that. It's just not, it's my fault for not communicating effectively. So there's so many issues that we have to tackle this stuff before we even get into why this descent from Darwin shit even matters. Like, because to me, I understand where our scientific knowledge comes from. It's not people's opinions. That shit is funny. You said that you understand the coach from what? Yes, I understand exactly what he was saying perfectly. Because anybody, if y'all want to see what I'm talking about, if you've not seen Waterboy, go to YouTube and type in Cajun OnStar. The OnStar. How you didn't know it was a joke? Yeah, I didn't understand what people were saying because I understood the coach from Waterboy. No, you gotta, you're home with the hardest. And, you know, he didn't sound abnormal to me. He sounded like a Cajun. So, but anyway, watch Fargo. That's how my family talks. But yeah. If we want to discuss topics, it is incumbent upon both parties to have knowledge about the topic, to be able to communicate effectively, to agree onto some terms, some common terms and usages. If not, how can the conversation happen? I mean, it's sad because we're all adults. Most of us, I think. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. The thing is, the G-Man, he say he's smarter than you. He thinks he knows how you get views. Yeah, he says a lot of stuff like that. I don't pay attention to him because I know he says stuff out of anger. He just runs his mouth. And I'll let him have that. But so now that there are a lot of people watching, and more likes than people watching, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't get my scientific knowledge from people's opinions. I've never tried Vegemite. If somebody wants to send me Vegemite, I'll try it. What Richard Dawkins thinks about evolution personally, I could give two shits. I don't care. Fuck him. You know what I care about? I want to see his research. That's what I want to see. I want to go, well, you know what? Does the evidence that you have, the empirical evidence that you possess, reflect what's in reality? You'll probably go and read. That, yes, requires some reading. You have to read. Sorry, you can't get over that. You have to fucking read. Peer review research, thank you. Well, you know what? He can say a bunch of stuff in here. We can discuss it. But what did he do? Well, you know what? Luckily, there's a whole section telling you what they fucking did. It's called the method section, the methodology, if you will, about what they did. Literally, every scientific paper has a section showing you exactly what they did. They have all kinds of charts and graphs, and then they explain step by step what they did and the numbers and how they calculated it. That is what's appealing. That's what I look for. I don't care what they say. Anybody can say anything. But if they're producing something, a result from predictions and all that good shit, if they are, it should be repeatable, right? How would we repeat it? Well, that whole method section tells you how. You should be able to follow it and come to the same, if not a similar, conclusion within a certain, margin of error. Of course, there's experimental errors that happens. I know I've been way fucking off and had to repeat shit because my range for my error was just too great. Happens. But That's how I know. So let's say you know what? Forget the descent from Darwin. People's opinions. Let's go with an actual scientist. Let's go with Tompkins' paper. Yes, Mr. Tompkins. This man, he has a degree in the field, right? Ball for fucking ball. Just he's on it. Tompkins knows his shit. Well, there's a lot of people in his field who disagree with him. Well, so what? He's a maverick. He's doing what they want to. He is a trendsetter. He is out there doing this. Okay. So, if I follow what Mr. Tompkins, Dr. Tompkins, has proclaimed, I should be able to come to the correct conclusion, right? There should be no disagreement that we should be able to, he's a scientist, right? He's a geneticist, if I'm not mistaken. He has a PhD. It's legit. He went to school. All right, cool. He has work in the field. All right. He has produced a paper on his particular position. Cool. Is it peer-reviewed? No. No, it's not peer-reviewed. So why do we care? Why do we care if people out and wherever have reviewed his work? He's a scientist. Well, remember that whole thing about not caring about what people say? That's kind of playing a part here. Yeah, I think they understand the concept behind peer review. I don't think they actually know how it works, because you just can't have the guys in your lab review your work, your peers. No, it's people who are in the field who get kind of brought in. People you're not even going to know who it is until after, or as they're actually reviewing it. I think actually after they review it, if I'm not mistaken, they give you your verdict. I think there's three possible outcomes. It gets rejected, it gets accepted conditionally, and then just it's accepted, period. I want to say those are the three options. Someone feel free to correct me. But so you have people who are experts in the field review your work, and they look at your methods to see your work and to check to see if the math is right, to check to see if, you know, you haven't made any egregious errors. It's a checks and balances system to make sure people aren't just fabricating stuff. It's built into the system. That's why we like it. It's not foolproof, not perfect, nothing perfect. Can't get perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. Sorry. So we have this system, works pretty well, allows us to produce the wonderful technologies that we enjoy. So why? So, well, Tompkins had everything else. And if I want to jump on board with what he's saying about human chromosome 2, then why wouldn't he have a method section? Why can't I see what he's done? That's a little disconcerting. So if I really wanted to go to a lab and see, I don't know. I have him telling me what he did, but I don't have the proof of it. So I have to take him on his word. A scientist now, an educated, a man who had to produce peer-reviewed work at some point, has now chosen not to. So am I supposed to go, well, that's okay, he can just kind of produce whatever he wants and I'll just accept it? Well, that would make me kind of gullible now, wouldn't it? Why not hold him to the same standards as everyone else? Since he is part of, you know, the educated community. Since he's had to do it before, why can't he do it now? If what he says is accurate, if it's just as repeatable, if it is legit, he should have a section for me to go in and do exactly what he did, come to the exact same conclusion, no matter what I want to believe. So here we go. It goes back to, now we still have to rely on someone's opinion. So when we talk about people being skeptical and talk about people being gullible, every time I hear Tompkins and his paper and his supposed work, I have to wonder to myself, do we mean different things? Are we talking about something different? Because someone who's skeptical would wonder why you can't see exactly what he did. Wouldn't something go off in your brain and go, wait, he's telling us this. It goes against 99.9% of what every other scientist in his field has said, but he can't show you how he got his results. And you want me to believe this. For what reason? I don't want to have to believe him. I want him to demonstrate it. If you can't produce his work to show what he did, then why am I believing this? Why are you believing this? Why are you even promoting this if you know that's the case? If he can't even be on par with the rest of the people in his field, then he's subpar. So you want me to believe someone's word again and be gullible with subpar work. So who's skeptical now? Remind me again who's actually skeptical? Because from what I see laziness. Again, laziness. So, I don't know. I posed a lot of questions. I talked a bit. That's 2 hours. That's enough for me. I'm going to retire. I'm not sure what's going on with Sam. We may have to just hold off until tomorrow. He does get busy with actual work. I think we'll be doing a podcast later on. I will put the Facebook page to the podcast in the link to this video. So if you guys want to actually watch that, we'll be on later tonight, and we'll see what happens. It'll be our first run, and it should be interesting. So on that note, y'all have a good night.